I want to talk a little bit about using electronic drums, specifically the Alesis Strata Prime in live band situations. Why electronic drums? Well, little background, I play in a few different bands, and we do get booked at some cafes, some small wineries. I think that the acoustic drums, this is my opinion, acoustic drums don't sound good in those situations. Even maybe putting a little tape on the cymbals and putting some dampening on the snare, playing with the lighter touch. I, I think that those don't make for a good drum sound for that situation, for a rock band situation. Maybe for like a light jazz or something like that, that might be good, but for a full rock band, those drums are not going to sound like recorded rock drums. And I claim that I can get recorded rock drum sounds for these situations with electronic drums. And I found that, even playing with certain musicians, they have just a bias against electronic drums. They don't sound good, they don't have the same feel, whatever the reason is. And I found a lot of these musicians are some more old school people who like to have big amps on stage that they can crank up, and they're just listening to themselves, just loudly on stage. I find that other musicians who are used to a quiet stage, who do use modeling amplifiers or pedals, that they're more open to this type of thing. And let's be real, I think that's where a lot of live music is going anyways, is the quieter stage, and makes sense to have drums go along with that. If I'm playing a big room with a big stage, fully mic'd drums, acoustic set is the way I go. It's fun to play, it's fun to hit hard, but that is maybe, 25% of the gigs I play at this point. So that just doesn't work. So why did I get the Strata Prime? I had two requirements for what set I was going to get, right? That was number one, highest priority, it has to sound good. And in my opinion, the Strata Prime module is the best sounding module out there. It uses the BFD engine, and it sounds great. It's comparable to the Superior Drummer 3 engine that I was using. So I find it's same quality. I, I've heard demos and maybe played the Roland at the drum store. I don't think they sound as good. Maybe the F note sounds as good or better, but the F note is trying to be a replacement for acoustic drums visually and sonically. I don't need it to look like an acoustic kit, and for the money that you're paying for that, I think it's diminishing returns. So when you start getting to these higher end kits that Roland provides and that F note provides, you're starting to get into the price of a used car. So for the money that you're spending on these, the extra thousands of dollars, I don't think you're getting sound wise anything significantly better than what the Strata Prime provides. And then looks. And this is the other thing that I needed to look good. Drums are a stage prop. Let's be honest. That's you want to see, big bands, they use double bass kits, lots of toms. Even if they're not using two bass drums, they're going to have two bass drums on stage, and sometimes they'll even run a double bass pedal to just one bass drum. It's a stage prop. But I don't think electronic drums need to look like acoustic drums. They can look differently. They just gotta look good. And with the full size Alesis pads and cymbals, the full size kick, I think it's got a great look to it. I will say this. Is it the same exact experience as playing on an acoustic drum? No. It's a very similar experience. And I will even go a step further and say you have to play cleaner on electronic drums. I feel that, cymbals ring out live on an acoustic set. They're loud. They can really hide a lot of, just if you're kind of feathering that kick drum a little bit, it can really hide a lot of those notes. You don't get that luxury in electronic drums. The hits you hit are going to sound pretty loud and pretty clear. And, so you got to get used to that. When you're playing some lighter snare drum stuff, yeah, it's pretty good, but it's not exactly the same. So you do have to kind of adjust a little bit to that. Um, but overall, I feel like the playing experience is close, not the same, but close. The other thing is you get missed triggers every now and then. There's some other YouTube channels out there that talk about the mistriggering on the Strata Prime. There's a setting to do like the automatic crosstalk detection, and the suggestion is to not use that. So you're getting into more complicated technical configurations that you can't really adjust this on the fly in a live gig. So if you're missing some snare hits or some kick drum hits, that can be a little dramatic. Last time I played, my snare drum wasn't set up correctly, and a lot of the rim hits were triggering, even though I wasn't hitting the rim. So I ended up getting a lot of these like clickety sounds instead of a full snare drum hit. So it just took a little bit of dialing that in between sets to make it right. But again, it's a little bit more technical, a little bit more challenging to get this to trigger perfect. When you're using electronic drums live, you're not beholden to having just normal rock drum sounds. So I was actually able to pick up a couple of extra Roland pads I got them at a Goodwill actually for like $20 each, and I could have some clapping noises, clapping sounds, this is like an 808 clap, or like an old Simmons 80s tom, or I can have like a little tambourine. I like the flexibility to have these extra sounds when I play live, and it's just already part of my kit, so there's really no extra configuration that I have to do to make this work. The footprint of the Alesis Strata Prime is pretty similar to my acoustic drum set footprint. So it's not like you're gonna have a smaller footprint if you're playing these smaller cafes. I probably could work on eliminating part of the rack. There's 3 sections to the rack. Maybe I could have a smaller rack setup that just uses 2, or maybe even do like a smaller one that doesn't even need a rack, just a couple pads on stands or something like that. But for the most part, I'm using the same footprint. Setup time for electronic drum is pretty similar to an acoustic drum setup time. Like I said, I have a very similar setup. I have all the cables attached to the rack in a way and tied down. So it is pretty quick just once I have everything in place, just to plug everything in. I'm not messing around with a bunch of cables, and putting everything into the back of the Strata Prime is pretty easy. They have color-coded connectors, so it's all pretty fast. But the one thing that I want to point out that's been the most challenging is what I thought would be the easy part here is I go, here's my sound. I have 2 XLRs, hand it to the person who's running the board and say, just pan this left and right, and that's my sound. In practice, it's not that simple. Now musicians are depending on monitors instead of whatever's just blasting. So they have to make sure that they adjust things correctly on their monitoring. What if they're using speakers or in-ears before you start playing? And there's nothing more frustrating than when you've already done a sound check, you've already done everything, and then the musicians start complaining when you start playing that they can't hear things. I've actually had people running the board, not a professional sound person per se, but a friend who's knowledgeable enough on how to move the sliders will run the board, and they're not used to the electronic drums, and they come up to me halfway through a set and say, yeah, your cymbals aren't coming through. I hear them fine. I'm using in-ears when I play live, but yet out in front, cymbals are missing. Why can that be? Now, when we're playing live shows and I'm using electronic drums, this is because it's a smaller venue. You're just going to have a pretty small vocal PA, and we will usually provide that small vocal PA. And we all just kind of pitch in, set up everything. Make sure that your mains are sounding good, right? That the mains sound the way they should be. Play a song that you're familiar with through the speakers first before you even sound check anything. If the speakers aren't going to sound good, your drums aren't going to sound good through them. I actually recorded a little bit of myself playing drums into Logic Pro using MIDI. So I just attached the MIDI cable from the back of the module into my Mac and recorded some of the MIDI, cleaned it up, exported that as a MIDI file, and I put that on my phone. So I can now use my phone to send MIDI to my controller. All I have to do, I have this MIDI file app. I put that MIDI file in this MIDI file app, and I can just hit play. And then I go out front, listen. This is, I can even go right ahead and change on the fly. And stop this. One other thing I want to point out is that the Strata Prime module has two different menus for mixing drums. They have an advanced menu and like a simple menu or an easy menu. And you can't do anything on the fly from the advanced menu. It's too complicated. It has sections for and a lot of tweaking for the individual pads, for the individual sounds. So you got to keep it on the easy editor. And now you have knobs for kick, snare, tom, cymbals, and ambience. That's really what you want in a live situation. And then you can just reach over and adjust those as needed. So thanks. This is my first video like this. So if you want more, if you want me to talk more about how I use all my electronics together live, I can do that. Thanks.